I make $94,000 a year as a nurse in Phoenix, and there are mornings I sit in my car after shift and I can't make my hand turn the key. People hear that number and they think, okay, you're fine, you're comfortable, you're winning. But burnout is eating my life in a way that feels quiet and brutal. Like I'm still smiling in family photos, but I'm not really there. I'm not talking about being tired. I'm talking about feeling like my nervous system is permanently stuck on alert, even when I'm in my own kitchen. And the part that scares me is, I'm good at this job. I'm the nurse people grab when things start going wrong. Lately, I've been wondering if being good is the thing that's going to ruin me.
Okay, I'm really glad you started there, because that's the truth people don't hear. They hear the paycheck, they don't hear what it costs to earn it. When you say you sit in the car and you can't turn the key, what's happening in that moment? Is it sadness? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it your mind replaying the night?
It's like a delayed impact. During the shift, I'm sharp. I'm moving fast, making decisions, watching monitors, watching faces, keeping it together. Then I clock out, walk through the garage, and it's quiet in a way the hospital never is. And my body finally realizes I'm not in survival mode anymore. My chest gets tight, my jaw is sore from clenching, and my brain starts playing a highlight reel I didn't ask for. Did I miss something? Did I chart that? Did I hang that antibiotic on time? Did she look a little off when I left the room? And sometimes there's this weird shame, like, I'm supposed to be grateful. I have a job that matters. Why do I feel like I'm falling apart?
That question is so common for caregivers. You're surrounded by people who have it worse, so you feel guilty for having feelings. Before we go deeper, give people the basics so they can picture you. How old are you? How long have you been a nurse? What kind of floor are you on? And what does that 94,000 look like in real life?
I'm 35. I've been a nurse for 7 years, all in Phoenix. I work on a medical surgical telemetry floor, mostly nights, and that's a big reason the pay looks the way it does. If I only worked my 3 12-hour shifts and went home, I wouldn't hit 94. I'd be closer to the low 80s. The 94 happens because I pick up, I work holidays, and I take the shifts other people can't take. My take-home is usually around $2,100 to $2,300 every 2 weeks after taxes and insurance and retirement. And Phoenix is not the cheap city people still imagine. My rent for a 2-bedroom is just under $2,000, and that's before utilities. So it's not like I'm out here living some luxury life. It's more like I'm sprinting to stay stable.
That rent number tracks with what a lot of people are seeing in Phoenix right now, even with the market cooling compared to the peak. And that's the thing. A salary isn't a lifestyle. It's what's left after the city takes its cut. Okay, walk me into a shift, like I'm shadowing you on a random night. What happens from the moment you walk onto the unit?
I get there around 6:30, and the first decision is always food. Do I eat now, or do I gamble that I'll get a break later? And I say gamble because later is not guaranteed. I badge through the doors, and it's that hospital smell. Sanitizer, plastic, and old coffee that's been sitting too long. Report starts around 7, and immediately I'm doing math in my head. Who's confused? Who's a fall risk? Who's on blood thinners? Who's fresh post-op? Who's on oxygen? Whose family is going to hover and question everything? On a good night, I'll have 5 patients. On a normal night, it's 6. I've had 7, and 7 is not just a number. It changes what kind of nurse you're allowed to be. Because at that point, you're not doing nursing the way people imagine nursing. You're doing constant triage.
Explain that difference. When you say you're not doing nursing, what does the job become when you're carrying 6 or 7 people at once?
It becomes interruptions stacked on interruptions. I'll be in a room giving meds and my phone goes off because someone's heart rhythm looks weird. I step out and a family member is asking for blankets and ice and updates like it's room service. Then lab calls with a critical value. Then a bed alarm goes off down the hall. And all of that is happening while I'm trying to be safe. Like, I'm scanning the med labels, checking allergies, making sure I'm not mixing something wrong because one mistake can be life-changing. So you start doing good enough instead of good. You start cutting corners you swore you'd never cut. Not because you're lazy, because time is a hard wall. And every time you rush a conversation, every time you skip the extra comfort, it feels like you're betraying why you became a nurse.
That's what people call moral injury. It's not just stress. It's being forced to practice below your own standards, then carrying the guilt like you chose it. What pulled you into nursing in the first place? Because you said you're good at it. So there's something in you that wanted this.
It started as practicality, if I'm being honest. I grew up in a house where money was always tense. My mom worked 2 jobs for a while, and my dad's work wasn't consistent. I didn't have this childhood dream of being a nurse. I had this adult fear of being stuck. Nursing looked like a ladder, a real ladder. You get licensed, you can work anywhere, you can provide, you can breathe. And then I got into it, and I did feel purpose. The first time I calmed a terrified patient down just by explaining what was happening, I remember thinking, oh, this matters. I like the skill part too, the problem solving, catching changes early. I didn't expect the cost to be, it follows you home. It's like the job lives in your body even when you're off.
And for people listening, the money piece you're describing isn't some unusual outlier. The Bureau of Labor Statistics wage data for the Phoenix metro area has registered nurses around the low 90,000 range on average, so your 94 is right in that neighborhood. Which means a lot of nurses are living inside this exact trade-off. Decent pay, brutal pace. What does Phoenix add to the job specifically? Because the city has its own texture, heat, growth, people moving in and out, a lot of different kinds of patients.
Phoenix adds contrast and volume. You'll have an older snowbird who came down for the winter, and suddenly they're in the hospital because their heart can't keep up. And next door, you've got someone younger who's dehydrated and sick and doesn't have stable housing, so discharge is basically a fantasy. In the summer, we see heat illness, people coming in confused, kidneys struggling, and the city still moves like nothing's wrong, even when it's 115 outside. We see a lot of diabetes complications, a lot of heart issues, a lot of chronic lung problems, and we see loneliness. People whose families live out of state, or they're estranged, and the hospital becomes their human contact. And you want to be human back, but you're doing it with a stopwatch pressed against your throat.
You said you're the nurse people grab when things start going wrong. That sounds like pride and a trap at the same time. What does things going wrong look like on your floor?
It looks like time collapsing. It's a patient who was fine at 8 p.m., and by 10 p.m. their blood pressure is dropping, and they're sweaty, and you're thinking, this is infection, this is bleeding, this is something. It's a confused patient trying to climb out of bed while you're in another room hanging meds. It's a new admission rolling in with no medication list, no clear story, and a family member filming because they don't trust the hospital. It's chest pain while you're already behind. And the thing people don't understand is it's not one crisis. It's 3 at the same time. So you prioritize like a machine. Who can't wait? Who might fall? Who might stop breathing? Who is going to spiral if you don't get there fast? I'm good at that part. I can stay calm. I can move fast. But living like that, night after night, it does something to your brain.
And it does something to your body, too. People don't think of hospitals as dangerous workplaces, but the injury and illness data tells a different story. In recent Bureau of Labor Statistics incidence rate tables, hospitals are up around 5 OSHA recordable injuries and illnesses per 100 full-time workers in a year. So you're dealing with physical risk plus psychological load. What's the physical toll on you personally?
My body feels older than 35. My feet hurt in a way that makes you angry, like you're mad at your own bones. My back is always tight, and I've had that moment repositioning someone where you feel a warning twinge and you think, that's how careers end. I get headaches because I don't drink enough water, because I don't want to have to find time to pee. That sounds ridiculous until you've lived it. I've eaten food standing up over a trash can, just taking bites like I'm sneaking. And nights wreck your sleep. I'll come home and the sun is up and my brain is buzzing, and I'm supposed to shut off like a light switch. So physically, yes, I'm tired. but it's also this constant stress sitting in my muscles, like my body never fully unclenches.
That "I don't want to pee" line says everything. Okay, take me home. You get off shift. You walk into your place. What does your life look like outside the hospital?
I'm married. My husband's name is Chris. We have 2 kids. My daughter is 10 and my son is 6. Chris works in logistics, so he's daytime, early mornings, and I'm nights, which means we're like ships passing in the hallway. When I get home, the kids are waking up, and I'm trying to be present for 5 minutes before I disappear behind blackout curtains. And the worst part is, it's not just my absence. It's my mood when I am there. Noise feels sharp. Questions feel like demands. I get impatient fast. My daughter will tell me a story, and I'll catch myself answering like I'm answering a call light. Quick, efficient, not warm. And then later I'll sit with the guilt like a stone in my stomach because my kids deserve a mother who's softer than that.
That's the heartbreak. When the job starts changing the way you love people. When did you first realize it had crossed that line for you? Not, "This is hard," but "This is taking something personal."
It crept in, and then it slapped me. At first, it was little things. I stopped calling friends back. I stopped working out. I stopped doing anything that felt like me. I kept telling myself I was recovering from work, but really, I was avoiding life. Then I started feeling resentment before empathy. Like a call light would go off, and my first feeling would be irritation. That scared me because I used to be the nurse who would sit for 2 minutes and make someone feel seen. One day, my son asked me if I could come to his school thing, and I said yes automatically. And then I realized I had no idea what day it was because my schedule had eaten my calendar. And my husband said quietly, "You're here, but you're not with us." I got defensive. I said all the usual lines about providing and sacrifice. But later, alone, I realized he wasn't attacking me. He was describing reality.
I want to ask you something direct. You said at the top you're afraid of what burnout is turning you into. If you had to describe that version of you, what are the traits? What does she act like?
She's numb. She laughs at dark jokes at work and then feels disgusting for laughing later. Like, who am I becoming? She forgets little things, like signing a permission slip, and then tries to fix it with money or gifts instead of attention. She gets a text from her husband and feels annoyed because it's one more thing pulling on her, even though she loves him. She's jumpy. Like, we'll be in a restaurant and I hear a beep and my whole body tightens. And the part I hate admitting, she's proud. Because being the calm one in chaos makes me feel valuable. It makes me feel needed. So I'll complain and then I'll pick up another shift because being needed feels like oxygen, even when it's poisoning me.
That's the contradiction that keeps people stuck. Okay, let's go to the breaking point. Not the first hard shift, not the first bad assignment. The moment you realized, I can't keep pretending this is normal. Where were you? What happened? And what did it do to you?
It was about 8 months ago, and I can still see the hallway. We were already short at the start. No tech. Charge nurse had a full assignment, which is always a bad sign because then nobody is really watching the big picture. I had 6 patients. One of them was a woman in her late 50s, post-op, kind of pale, saying she felt weird. Not dramatic, just off. I did vitals, checked her incision, checked her monitor, and nothing screamed yet, but my gut didn't like it. Then I got pulled into another room because a confused patient was trying to climb out of bed, and the family was yelling and the bed alarm was going nonstop. While I'm in there, my phone rings. Lab has a critical. Another patient's blood count dropped. I'm calling the provider, and the provider is tied up, and I'm standing in the hallway with my brain splitting. When I finally get back to that post-op patient, her skin is gray, not pale, gray, and the room turns into an emergency so fast it feels like the air changes.
Slow it down. When you see that gray, what happens in your body, and what do you do first?
My stomach dropped like an elevator. The monitor alarm felt louder than it should, like it was inside my head. The room felt cold, like the air conditioning was suddenly blasting. My hands moved on autopilot. Call for help, check pulse, check breathing, start compressions when I couldn't find what I needed. And then people poured in. Suddenly, there were 10 bodies in a room that felt empty 2 minutes before. The doctor is giving orders. Someone is pushing meds. Respiratory is there. Somebody is trying to get a line. And I'm doing compressions thinking, please don't let me be too late. And the sick part is, my brain was split. Half of me was in the emergency, and the other half was thinking about my other 5 patients, like, who is watching them right now? We got her back for a moment. We got a pulse. We moved her to the intensive care unit. And when it was over, I stood in the doorway sweating, and I felt nothing. That's when I knew something in me had shut down.
You felt nothing in the moment. And then later, in the car, it hits. What happened after? Not medically, emotionally. When you finally had 1 second to be a person.
After that emergency, I had to keep working. That's the part that still makes me angry. There's no pause. Nobody says, go breathe. You wipe your hands, you chart, you answer call lights, you give meds, you keep moving like you didn't just do chest compressions on somebody's mom. Around 3 or 4 in the morning, I finally found a corner, and I went into the supply room. I leaned my forehead against a shelf, and my whole body started shaking. Not crying, shaking, like my system was trying to dump electricity. I remember thinking, if my kids could see me right now, they wouldn't recognize me. The patient didn't make it. She died later in the intensive care unit, and I found out through a coworker like it was casual information. I went home and I tried to sleep and I couldn't. And then I tried to be a mom and I couldn't. And I just felt guilty and empty and furious at everything.
I want to say something clearly, because nurses get crushed by blame they don't deserve. You're describing a system that created a perfect storm. Staffing, competing emergencies, no buffer. And yet nurses carry it like, I should have done more. Do you still carry that night?
Yes, it's like it lives in a drawer in my brain, and sometimes the drawer slides open on its own. I'll be brushing my teeth and suddenly I see her face. I'll hear a beeping sound somewhere and my body tightens like I'm back in that room. Logically, I know I didn't choose the ratio. I didn't choose the chaos. I didn't choose the delays. But nursing trains you to believe that if you're good enough, you can absorb anything. So when something goes wrong, your brain says, then you must not have been good enough. That thought is poison. It's one of the reasons burnout feels like it eats you from the inside, because it turns every bad outcome into a personal indictment.
And that's where people who aren't in it will say, just take time off, like you can reset your nervous system with a weekend. Let's talk money for a second, because the title has that 94,000 in it, and people will still think, okay, then step back, stop picking up. What happens if you try to step back financially?
If I step back, the math gets scary fast. Rent is the biggest one. We're not in some fancy place. It's just a decent 2-bedroom where I don't feel unsafe taking the trash out at night. Groceries are wild. Kids eat like they're growing every hour. We have car stuff, insurance, gas, school costs, sports, random fees that pop up like landmines. My husband's paycheck helps, but it's not enough to comfortably carry everything if I drop my income by a big chunk. So when I pick up, sometimes it's not greed, it's fear. It's trying to keep the ground under our feet. And the twisted part is the thing that pays the bills is the thing draining the life out of me. So you start thinking, do I want to be present and broke or paid and gone?
That's the core contradiction right there. Okay, I want to talk about leadership and the system. Do you feel supported by management, or do you feel managed? Because there's a difference.
I feel managed. My coworkers support me. My charge nurses try when they're not drowning themselves. But leadership feels like emails and slogans. They'll put up posters about wellness and then deny paid time off because staffing is tight. They'll say safety is the priority and then normalize unsafe assignments like it's weather. Like, yep, that's just how it is. And they'll celebrate you when you save the day. But the second a patient complains about a wait time, suddenly you're in an office defending yourself like you're the problem. It's whiplash. So you stop trusting the system. You trust your team, and that's it. And when your team is also exhausted, it starts to feel like there's nowhere to stand.
I've heard nurses describe charting as its own kind of trauma. Like the floor feels like a battlefield, but the computer feels like a courtroom. And you're not imagining that. There are whole discussions among nurses about how a lot of documentation feels like it exists for liability or audits, not care. What is charting like for you? Does it follow you home?
It follows me home like a ghost. Charting is supposed to communicate what happened, but a lot of it feels like protection, like you're building a shield in case something goes wrong. I've sat at a computer at 3 in the morning trying to remember if I turned a patient at the right time, because if I didn't click the box, it's like it never happened. And you're exhausted, so your brain is foggy, and you're terrified of making a mistake. Then you go home, and your mind keeps checking itself. Did I chart that correctly? Did I sign that medication? Did I forget a late entry? Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the day, heart pounding, because I dreamed I missed something. It's like you can't leave work at work because work lives in your head as anxiety.
And then there's the part nurses talk about in private, how you can do everything right and still get punished for not being fast enough. I've read nurses describing situations where someone had a heavy assignment, couldn't answer a call bell immediately, and management treated it like a personal failure instead of a staffing failure. Have you had a moment like that, where you felt blamed for the system?
Yes, and that moment did something to me. A few weeks after that emergency, I got called into the office because a family complained that I took too long to respond. And I remember sitting there thinking, you have no idea what I was doing. You don't know I was in another room keeping someone alive. But it didn't matter. It was like the complaint existed in a vacuum. They used words like perception and customer service, and I wanted to scream, "This is not a hotel." I apologize because that's what you do, but inside I felt this hot, bitter feeling like the hospital will let you drown and then criticize you for not swimming with a smile. That's when the job started feeling less like care and more like performing care.
That's such a good phrase. Performing care. Let's talk about your marriage and motherhood, because you've described how you show up at home and it hurts you. What are the conversations you and Chris have now that you didn't used to have? What are the fights about?
We fight about tiny things that aren't tiny. He'll ask me to do something normal, like sign a paper or call the dentist, and I'll snap like it's an attack. It's not about the dentist. It's because my brain feels overloaded and one more request feels like a weight. We've had conversations where he says, "I miss you," and my first instinct is to defend myself. Like, "I'm working, I'm providing, I'm doing this for us." But then he'll say, "I know, and I'm proud of you, but I'm lonely." And that lands in my chest because I can't argue with it. There was a night he said, "I feel like I'm married to the hospital." And I stood there in scrubs, smelling like sanitizer, and realized I've been giving my best energy away and bringing the leftovers home. That's not the marriage we promised each other.
I'm going to press gently on something you keep saying. I'm doing it for us. That's honorable, but you're also describing your family paying a price. How do you reconcile pride and regret at the same time?
It's messy. I'm proud that my kids don't hear the kind of money stress I heard growing up. I'm proud that if something breaks, we can fix it without panic. I'm proud that if someone gets sick, we can get care. But I also regret the version of me they get sometimes. I hate that my daughter has learned to ask me important questions at certain times because she can tell when I'm fragile. I hate that my son calls me sleepy mommy like it's just a fact of nature. So I tell myself it's a season. I tell myself it's temporary. I tell myself once we get ahead, I'll step back. But the truth is, the finish line keeps moving. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to look up and my kids will be teenagers, and I'll realize I paid for stability with their childhood.
That's the kind of honesty people don't say out loud. Okay, I want to talk about your body keeping score, because burnout isn't just emotional, it shows up as health. Have you had moments where your body basically told you, this is too much?
Yes, I went to a routine appointment and my blood pressure was high. And I laughed at first because, of course, it's high. I work nights and I live on adrenaline. Then I started getting these tight chest moments. Not a heart attack, but enough that it scared me. And the most humbling one? I was in a grocery store and a cart had a squeaky wheel that sounded like a call alarm, and my throat closed up. I had to step outside and breathe like I was calming down a panicked patient. except it was me. My stomach is a mess too. My body doesn't know when to eat. Nights turn you into a person who snacks at the wrong times and then wonders why you feel sick. So yeah, it's in my body now. It's not just thoughts. It's like my nervous system is living at a volume it can't sustain.
A lot of people would call that trauma, even if it doesn't look like what they picture when they hear that word. Do you think of it that way? Do you feel traumatized by the job?
I didn't want to use that word for a long time. I used to think trauma had to be one big, obvious thing. But nursing is 1,000 smaller things. It's seeing people at their worst. It's watching families break. It's watching bodies fail. It's hearing screams. It's holding a hand while someone is dying, and then walking into the next room like you're fine. And we don't really process it. We joke. We compartmentalize. We keep moving. So yeah, I think it's trauma. It's cumulative. It's the way my body reacts to sounds, the way I scan rooms, the way my brain replays scenes at random. And the worst part is, everyone still expects you to be the strong one. So you pretend you're fine until your body refuses to play along.
I want to talk about safety, because this is another hidden cost people don't understand. Not just patient safety, your safety. Aggression, violence, being threatened. Have you dealt with that?
Yes. I've been screamed at so close I could feel spit on my face. I've been called names that make you go cold inside. I've had patients grab my wrist, grab my badge, try to pull me closer. Sometimes it's delirium, dementia, withdrawal, psych issues. I know it's not always personal, but your body doesn't care about the reason when someone's hand is on you. We have security, but security can't be everywhere. And by the time they show up, something already happened. So you learn to approach rooms differently. You learn where to stand. You learn to keep the bed between you and a patient. You read faces like weather. That constant readiness hardens you. It makes you less soft. And then you go home, and you wonder why you feel on edge in your own living room. It's because you've trained your body to expect danger.
I want to add a layer for viewers, because it's not just your hospital. This shows up everywhere. You can find reviews from nurses in the Phoenix area describing short staffing, missed breaks, and burnout feeding more burnout, like people calling out and making the next shift worse. When you're living that, what keeps you coming back? Because despite all of this, you're still showing up.
It's the moments that still feel human. It's the patient who's terrified, and you explain what's happening, and you watch their shoulders drop. It's a family member who's been difficult all night, and then at the end, they quietly say, "Thank you for not giving up on her." It's catching something early. That's a high I'm not proud of, but it's real. When you notice a subtle change and you prevent a disaster, you feel like you did what you were trained to do. Sometimes it's my coworkers. We take care of each other in small ways. A snack, a quick, "I've got your call" light, a look that says, "I see you drowning." And it's also identity, if I'm honest. At work, I know who I am. I'm competent, I'm useful, I'm needed. At home lately, I sometimes feel like a mess. So the hospital becomes both the thing hurting me and the place where I still feel like I matter.
That's such a dangerous loop. The job wounds you, and then becomes the place you go to feel valuable. Okay, here's where I want to shift. I want the surprise, the complication, the thing that makes this story current. What's happening right now that changes the stakes? Because you're not just talking about the past, you're living in the present.
2 things happened recently that shook me. First, we got an email about a new staffing model. Those words make your stomach drop before you even read the details. It was basically a promise that we're going to do more with less, with nicer language. More floating, more charge nurses taking patients, more team nursing talk that always ends up meaning everybody is stretched thinner. I read it on my phone in my driveway and felt dread like we're going backwards. Second, my husband said something that felt like an ultimatum, but it wasn't angry. It was tired. He said, "I can't keep watching you disappear. Either you find a way to make this sustainable, or we need to rethink our life." And that hit me harder than any emergency at work. Because I realized I can handle chaos in a hospital, but I might lose my family at home.
When he said that, what did it hit in you? Shame, fear, relief? And what did you say back?
All of it. Shame because I felt like I was failing him. Fear because I pictured my kids in 2 houses. But relief too, because someone finally said what I've been avoiding saying out loud. I said, I don't know how to stop. And the second I said it, I hated how true it felt. Because nursing has this culture where you're supposed to be tough and flexible and willing to sacrifice. So stopping feels like weakness. It feels like letting people down. It feels like being selfish. But he looked at me and said, who are you helping if you're not okay? And that question has been following me around like a shadow.
I'm going to challenge you, gently, because you're a thoughtful person and you have agency. When you say, I don't know how to stop, what do you mean? Is it money, identity, guilt, fear of leaving coworkers behind? What's the hook?
It's identity more than I want to admit. At work, I'm Elena the nurse. I'm confident. I'm the person who can walk into a messy situation and make it less messy. I can start an IV on the hard stick. I can calm a family down. I can catch subtle changes before they become a disaster. At home lately, I feel like the tired mom, the irritable mom, the mom who's always recovering. So the hospital becomes the place where I still feel like myself, even though it's also the place that's draining me. Guilt is huge too. If I leave bedside, who takes my patients? If I go to a clinic, am I abandoning the people who need me most? Money matters, obviously. We built our whole life around my income being steady and decent. And then there's this weird pride in endurance, like, look how much I can carry. But I'm starting to see that pride is expensive. It's costing me my peace.
For viewers who don't live inside hospitals, I want to translate something. A lot of nursing organizations and advocates have been pushing for safer staffing because it affects both patient outcomes and nurse well-being. And the argument is basically, workload is not just a personal problem, it's a systems problem. When you hear that, does it help you? Or does it just make you angrier because it feels so obvious and yet nothing changes?
Both. It helps because it reminds me I'm not crazy. Like, this isn't me being weak. This is a real structural issue that a lot of nurses are screaming about. But it also makes me angrier because it feels like we've been saying the same thing for years. And the people making decisions don't feel the consequences the way we do. If staffing is short, they don't miss a meal. They don't get punched. They don't go home shaking. We do. So yes, it helps to name it. But naming it doesn't solve it at 2 a.m. when you have 6 patients and someone's blood pressure is dropping. In that moment, it's still on you. And that's the unfair part. The system creates the conditions, but the nurse carries the emotional debt.
Let's talk about the emotional debt. What do you do to cope that you're not proud of? Because this is where people get real. Do you numb out with food, scrolling, alcohol, isolation? What does coping look like for you?
Scrolling. A lot. I'll come home and I'm exhausted, but my brain won't shut off. So I sit in bed and scroll like I'm trying to hypnotize myself into sleep. I also isolate. I cancel plans. I tell friends I'm busy, but really I just don't have the energy to be a person. Food gets weird too. Sometimes I forget to eat at work, and then I binge later because my body is panicking. And I hate admitting this, but I've gotten colder. I've gotten quicker to judge people. Like, when someone complains about something small in the hospital, sometimes my first thought is, you have no idea how lucky you are. And that's not who I want to be. So my coping isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's me shrinking my world down to survive. But shrinking your world has a cost too. It makes your life smaller.
That's so well said. Okay, I want to go back to your floor culture. Sometimes the team is the only thing keeping people alive in jobs like this. What's it like on nights? Is it supportive, toxic, both?
Both. There's a bond you only get with people who've seen the same things you've seen. We laugh at dark stuff, and then we go into a room and hold someone's hand while they cry. People will bring you water without you asking because they know you're forgetting. People will jump in when your patient is crashing because they don't need an explanation. But burnout leaks into the culture. People are snappy. People get territorial. People gossip more because they're exhausted and looking for a place to put the frustration. And new nurses? It breaks my heart. They come in bright, and the job hits them like a truck. And you can literally watch the light dim over months. So it's supportive like a lifeboat is supportive. But everyone in the lifeboat is also scared.
I want to ask about shame. Nurses are expected to be endlessly compassionate, and when you feel numb or resentful, it can feel like you're failing as a person. Do you feel shame about the way burnout has changed you?
Yes, I'll have a patient crying because they're scared, and part of me wants to sit down and be that warm nurse who says, "I'm here." But another part of me is thinking about the meds due in the next room, and the admission coming, and the charting behind, and the bed alarm that's going to go off any second. So I give them the professional version of compassion. I say the right words, I keep my voice calm, and then I walk out and I feel like a fraud because inside, I'm numb. Then I feel guilty for being numb, and then I feel guilty for feeling guilty because I know I'm doing my best. It's like you can't win. Either you're not enough for your patients, or you're not enough for your family, or you're not enough for yourself. That constant not enough is exhausting.
That not enough feeling, that's what breaks people. Okay, let's talk about options. Because a lot of listeners will be thinking, leave bedside, go to a clinic, do something else. What's actually on the table for you right now?
I'm seriously looking at leaving bedside. I've looked at outpatient clinics, infusion centers, case management, maybe school nursing, things that still feel like healthcare, but not constant crisis. The problem is, a lot of those jobs pay less, sometimes 10, sometimes 15, sometimes more. And that's not just a number. That's rent, that's groceries, that's kids' activities. I've also thought about the intensive care unit, which sounds insane when you're burned out. But part of me thinks if I'm going to be stressed, I'd rather have fewer patients and deeper focus. And then there's the wild thought, leaving nursing entirely. But that feels like burning down the house I built. I worked hard for this license. I sacrificed for it. My identity is wrapped up in it. So right now I'm stuck in this limbo where every option has a cost, and I'm trying to pick the cost I can live with. And I'm trying to do it without blowing up my life.
That intensive care unit idea? I want to pull on that. It's the classic burnout move. I'm drowning, so let me swim into deeper water. Why does it feel appealing? What do you imagine would be different?
Because my floor feels like chaos without control. On medical surgical telemetry, I can have 6 totally different storylines at once. One patient stable, one crashing, one confused and climbing, one family demanding updates, one discharge, one admission. You're bouncing constantly. It makes you feel scattered, like you're always failing someone. In the intensive care unit, you have 1 or 2 patients. It's intense, but it's focused. You're watching trends, you're anticipating, you're not running 6 directions at once. That scratches the part of my brain that likes mastery. But then I think about what you see in intensive care, and I'm like, do I really want to be closer to death more often? So maybe it's not a solution. Maybe it's just my brain trying to find a fantasy where hard work feels more controlled. Because right now, my hard work feels like constant scrambling.
I want to go back to that night again for one more layer. Sometimes what breaks people isn't the emergency, it's what happens after. Did anyone debrief you? Did anyone check on you? Or was it just on to the next shift?
My coworkers did, in small ways. A nurse I love grabbed my shoulder and said, "You did good." And I almost cried because I needed someone to name it. But leadership? No. It was on to the next thing. And I don't even think it's because they're monsters. It's because the machine doesn't stop. The next night I came back and my assignment was full again. No debrief. No, how are you doing? Just, we're short, can you take 6? And that's when it hit me. The hospital will take everything you're willing to give. The people around you might care about you, but the system itself doesn't love you back. It will use you until you're empty, and then act surprised when you ask for help.
So if the system doesn't love you back, you have to decide what boundaries look like. What would a boundary even be for you? Because boundaries in nursing are hard. Is it not picking up? Is it switching shifts? Is it therapy? Is it leaving? What's the first realistic boundary?
The first realistic one is not picking up extra. And it sounds simple until you feel the pressure. There's always a text. There's always a bonus. There's always the guilt because you know your friends are drowning. But I'm realizing every time I pick up, I'm borrowing from my future self. I'm taking energy from my kids, from my marriage, from my health. Another boundary is being honest with my husband, instead of pretending I'm fine. I've been carrying it like it's mine alone, like I'm protecting him. But I think I've been isolating myself. Therapy is on the table too. I used to think therapy was for people who were really falling apart. Now I realize therapy is for people who want to stop falling apart. And then the biggest boundary, leaving bedside, that's the one that scares me. Because it feels like admitting defeat. But I'm starting to wonder if staying when it's destroying me is not strength, it's stubbornness.
That distinction matters. Strength versus stubbornness. Okay, what do you wish the public understood about your job? Like, if you could grab the average person and make them understand one thing about nursing, what would it be?
I wish they understood that nursing is not just tasks, it's constant judgment. It's watching a patient's face and noticing they're a little more tired, a little more confused, and knowing that can mean something serious. It's being the translator between doctors, patients, families, labs, imaging, pharmacy. You're the glue holding the whole thing together, and you're doing it while being interrupted every 30 seconds. I also wish people understood that when we seem rushed, it's not because we don't care. It's because we're trying to keep everyone alive. And I wish they understood that being kind to a nurse matters. A small kindness can carry you through an awful shift, and a small cruelty can echo in your head for days because you're already operating at the edge.
I want to bring it back to your kids for a second. What's a specific moment you missed that still hurts? Not in a vague way. A moment you can picture.
My daughter had a school performance last year. She was so excited. She practiced in the living room for days. I told her I would try, and she nodded like she already knew what try meant in our house. I worked the night before, and we got slammed. I got out late. I came home, laid down, and set an alarm. I woke up and my body felt like concrete. My head was pounding. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed thinking, if I stand up, I'm going to fall over. So I texted my husband and said I couldn't make it. When they got home, she didn't cry. She just got quiet. Later, she said, "It's okay, Mom. You were probably saving someone." And that sentence, it wrecked me. Because she was trying to make my absence noble so it wouldn't hurt as much. No 10-year-old should have to do that emotional math.
That's the kind of thing that changes a person. You're not just missing events. Your kids are learning what to expect from you, and you feel it. So here we are. You have an interview coming up. You have a husband drawing a line. You have a body throwing red flags. What scares you the most about actually leaving bedside?
That I'll regret it. That I'll leave and I'll miss the intensity and I'll feel like I abandoned something meaningful. That I'll take a pay cut and will struggle and I'll blame myself. And my husband will resent me, and it will create a different kind of stress. That I'll lose the part of me that feels competent and needed. And there's also this fear that people will judge me. Like, oh, she couldn't hack it. Nursing culture can be weird like that. It's like there's a badge of honor in suffering. But then I look at my kids and I think, what would I want them to do if they were in a job that was breaking them? I would want them to leave. I would want them to choose themselves. So why is it so hard to offer myself the same compassion?
That's the question. Okay, let's do reflection, but not generic reflection. If you could talk to 28-year-old you, the version of you stepping into nursing, what would you tell her specifically?
I would tell her to build a life outside the hospital on purpose. Not later, not after orientation. On purpose, immediately. Because if nursing becomes your whole identity, it will swallow you. I would tell her to learn the word no early, because the system rewards the dependable nurse with more work, not more peace. I would tell her to take breaks seriously, to drink water, to pee, to eat, to stop treating her own body like it's optional. I would tell her to get therapy before she thinks she needs it. Not because she's weak, but because she's carrying things human beings aren't meant to carry alone. I would tell her not to confuse adrenaline with meaning. And I would tell her that being a good nurse does not require being a martyr. You can care deeply without self-destructing. At least, that's what I wish I believed back then.
That's earned wisdom. Okay, we're coming toward the end, and I want the payoff to be real, not inspirational wallpaper. In the next 30 days, what decision are you facing, and what's at stake if you choose wrong?
I have an interview next week for an outpatient job. Clinic hours, steady pace. Still nursing, but not the constant crisis loop. It would probably be a pay cut, like 12 to 15,000 less a year, and that scares me because we don't have a ton of extra cushion. But what's at stake is my family and my sanity. My daughter starts a new season soon, and she asked me if I'll come to her games this time. She didn't say it mean. She said it like she's used to me not being there. My husband is watching me like he's waiting to see if I choose us. And I'm watching myself like I'm waiting to see if I choose me. So the decision is basically, do I keep chasing the paycheck and the identity and the endurance badge? Or do I take the hit and try to rebuild a life that doesn't revolve around recovering from work? And I can feel that I don't have unlimited time. If I keep going like this, my body is going to force a decision for me.
You started by saying you sit in your car and you can't turn the key. And now you're saying if you don't decide, your body will decide. That's full circle, and it's heavy. I want to end with something simple and hard. What do you want your kids to remember about you? Not about your job, about you.
I want them to remember that I was present. Not perfect, not always cheerful, but present. The mom who showed up, who listened, who didn't feel like a stranger in her own house. I want them to remember that I cared about people, but I also cared about myself enough not to disappear. I want my daughter to remember me in the stands, not just behind a closed door trying to sleep. I want my son to remember that when he talked to me, I looked at him like he mattered, not like my mind was still in a hospital hallway. Nursing has given me a lot. Skills, confidence, purpose, a way to provide. But I don't want it to take my softness. And saying that out loud, it makes it feel possible to fight for it.
I'm grateful you said it out loud. Because what you just did is the opposite of the tough it out culture. You told the truth. And for anyone listening who thinks burnout is just being tired, you just described what it actually is. It's your nervous system, your relationships, your identity, your body, all being taxed at once. Elena, I want to say this clearly. You being a good nurse has never required you to be destroyed. Whatever you choose in the next month, I hope it's a choice that lets your family have you, and lets you have you. Thank you for trusting us with this.
Thank you for making space for it. I didn't realize how much I was holding in until I started talking. And I know nurses listening are going to recognize themselves in this. And I just want to tell them, you're not weak. You're not broken. This job asks for a lot, and the fact that it's heavy doesn't mean you can't handle it. It means you're human. If you're sitting in your car after shift like I do, staring at the steering wheel, that's not a personal failure. That's a signal. And I'm trying to listen to the signal before it turns into something worse. I'm scared, but I'm also hopeful. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm admitting I want my life back.